Good morning, everybody. Today I am doing the Aurora pouch by a Quaint stitch, and I've done this really cool thing where I painted the back of my fringing. So it's very, very subtle until it moves around, and then you just get this like fun hint of purple because I'm ridiculous. And I've also used the purple and gold zip because, you know, why not? Just go all out. So if you would like to see how I make this, please stay tuned. Alright guys, so let's start with my preparation. I am using this, it's like almost stretchy, it's quite a thin faux leather vinyl stuff, and this is going to be my tassel piece. So I have painted the back with fabric paint, because now when the tassel moves you'll just get like that hint of purple. What I did was I used the template to draw at the top where I needed to paint to, and then I've painted just past there so that we're going to be able to not see any of this colour without wasting and having to paint all that section. So I'm just going to lay this back on. I've also chopped out the little bits at the side that it tells you to. So I'm going to take my accent here, and I'm just going to draw that line back on so that I can see where I need to do my fringing up to. And this is just a friction pen, so it doesn't matter how rough I get. And then I'm also going to echo that shape down the bottom, because in my brain this is going to look really cool. In my brain that woke me up at midnight to do this video, because it wouldn't let me sleep until I did it. So I'm just a little bit obsessed with fringing at the moment. So I have now echoed that template piece along the bottom. And you can't really see it because I used red. But I'm going to grab some scissors. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut off that bottom bit. Like that. So now my fringing is going to follow that top line. So now I'm going to take my tassel template, and this is for the end cap one because it's just that little bit wider. But if you did purchase from me the other one, it will also work as well. And I'm going to line up the edge with the edge. Funny about that. And so now I can still see my line through it. So I can start cutting from here up to the line. And I'm going from bottom to top so that I don't damage anything. And I have to put a little bit more pressure than normal for a couple of reasons. One, I've got the paint on there, so it's actually making the vinyl thicker. And two, because I'm sitting down. I usually cut these things standing up. So I'm just cutting up to the line. If I had to turn this the other way, which probably would have been smart, the template actually has numbers at the top so that you can see where you're up to. So I'm just working my way across. This is going to look awesome, or at least it does in my head. Now, I'm going to have to readjust anyway, so I may as well readjust now. But as you can see, we're getting a lovely fringing with a purple back. So I'm just going to readjust this. And if we do it this way, I can see the numbers and I can just count. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to actually just move the other fringing I've already done so that I can see where I'm up to. Place that on the edge, like so. Oh, see, that's better. Now I can just copy the numbers. But I am going to move it down like that. There we go. That's better. Now I don't need my fingers anywhere near it. I'm just counting in my head instead of out loud. I also did contemplate putting, that one didn't cut, I didn't push hard enough. I did contemplate putting some tassels on the zippers, but I think I'm going a little bit too tassel mad. Alright, so we'll finish up this and then we'll get started. Alright, so this is from Spotlight and it was quite thin. So I've put on some Vilene 1050, or as I like to call it, hefty. And then I'm just going to lay this over that top edge, like so. And I'm going to baste it along the very, very top. So I'm going to have a nice long stitch length and just stitch it to the top so it doesn't move. I've also got a Teflon foot on because this stuff's going to stretch and I would like to keep that to a minimum. So there's that line. Now, just to make it easier to see, I'm going to take that same template and with a friction texter so I can wipe it off, I'm going to cut or draw that same design so that I can see right where I need to sew. I'm going to draw that and then I'm going to up there, and then with the fringing and the bulk out, I'm going to start at the edge and I'm on a 3 3/4 stitch length and I'm just stitching on the line nice and slowly. Like so. And then to be fancy, I'm going to come and I'm going to do another line 1/8 of an inch back the other way. And backstitch. So now I've got these cool lines and everything looks normal. But then when you move the fringing, there's like this hint of purple. Just because I can, really. No other reason. So, that is the front done. So now we're going to go to the back. So there should be 2 pieces for the back, plus your zipper pocket. So I've got that here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that in the center. And then we're going to measure the zipper template box. Like so. So I'm just going to go from there to there, and then those bits go up. I'm just going to hand draw that, that's fine. So we've got this, and then we're going to go back to a joining stitch length, which for me is 2.5, and I'm going to line that up in the center, and I'm going to stitch the line I just drew. Making sure that I come down right in that corner, needle down and pivot. And then up, and then back stitch, and then trim. Again with my vinyl scissors, I'm just going to cut this at an angle as if I was triangling out the corners, but only half. like so. You want to get nice and close but not snip your threads. And then I'm going to fold this up and finger press this down like that, and then pinch it and bring it all the way down. And then I'm going to pull out those sides like that. And while I fiddle with the other side, I'm going to grab Scully and I'm just going to clip that in that corner, and then same with this side. So I'm going to clip there as well, like that. Now we need some zipper tape. So I'm going to cut some off with my zipper scissors. And put a zipper pull on. So I'm just going to crack it a little bit. I always put the left side in first, hold it there so it's halfway through the zipper, and then pull it around my finger and pull down. And then I'm just going to place this over here like so. And I'm going to top stitch. So I'm going to make a top stitch length. Down like this. And then across. And as we get closer to the zipper head, I'm going to stop with my needle down and then zip it out of the way. Then I'm going to take that clip off as well. Stitch along, needle down, pivot, and up the edge, like that. So now my zip's in. I'm going to take our top piece, and I'm going to clip that in place. So there, and the other side there. And then add a couple to the center. And then I'm going to get my back piece and put that on there as well. And it should line up with your first piece. Like so. So then I can just stitch straight across here with a joining stitch length. I'm going to zip this open so that I've got somewhere to kind of start. Zip the other way because it's in my way. Zip across like that, back stitch. And then I'm also going to fold that back and top stitch with the same top stitch length as the rest across this top part here. And you probably won't have to move your zipper pull out of the way this time. And back stitch. So now we've got our zipper, but we just have to close our zipper pocket. So I'm just going to do the two sides. And then if I leave this open, I can turn the bag through here. So I've gone back to a joining stitch length. And I've come up to the zip and back stitch. And that's sealed that side. And then we're going to do the same to the other side. Up to the zip and then back stitch. And we're going to leave the bottom open, and I will turn the bag through there at the very end. So I want to zip that open so that I can get in there. Next up, we need some more zipper tape. So the way I measure it is I go there to there. That's exactly how long it is. And then I'm going to take off 1 1/4 inches. And you might be wondering why the extra quarter. And it just works out better if you take it off. So usually with these kinds of things, you just take off the 1 inch. But I have found if you take that extra quarter, it all just works out easier. So I'm going to split the zip, put the other zipper on. I don't really use my zipper jig anymore. Zipper jigs are great for when you're starting out because it helps you to get it on. But I have found that I don't really use it anymore. So then we're just going to, because this is vinyl, I can just fold it over the edge and then we're going to stitch that down. Now I do have to be careful that this doesn't try and stretch on me because it is a quite soft vinyl. That's one side, and then we're going to do the other side. So you're just folding it perfectly in half. If you can't hold it, just grab a piece of double-sided tape and stick it down the center. Oops, preferably not hanging off the edge. So down the center like that, and then you just kind of rub it to warm it up and make it stick. And then you can pop your end on and it will hold in place for you. Like so. Now I don't have to hold it. But it can be done, well this one specifically can be done without that if I wanted to. I'm also going to do a sewing candy video today of how to get rid of that burr that keeps destroying my thread. It happened yesterday in the top video that I was making. Oh no, I can't see. The shadow's literally behind me. There we go. So it's shredding this one as opposed to snapping like it did yesterday, which is slightly annoying, but whatever. So now we want to take one of our lining pieces. I have used the bubble waterproof canvas, and we're just going to line this up in the center. Now, if you can't eyeball the center, fold it in half, give it a little clip. But I don't ever clip my zip. I'm just going to fold it in half and get a friction texter, which is something that's erasable. So you could also use a chalk pen. And I'm just going to mark it instead. I never cut my zipper tape because that's when it starts fraying. So now I've got my center marks. I can pop that on there. And I'll clip the center first, and then I can work my way out. So you should have just over 1/2 inch of a gap at each end. So like that. And then I want to grab my back piece, and I'm just going to add it into the clips. So I tend to do the 2 outside ones first, and then just clip the rest together, because if all's gone to plan, that should fit. So we're on a joining stitch length, so I'm going to start at the end. I'm going to stitch. That doesn't sound right. That is a bobbin thing. I can hear it. All right. Pull the thread through. Pull that off. There we go. All right, so we're going to stitch along. Now, I'm at the zipper pull now. So I'm going to zip it where I've already stitched. And I'm going to back stitch at the end. Swivel this around. Pull back just the one layer. And then I'm going to top stitch on the vinyl side. Now it is a curve, so you are going to have to like separate them a little bit. You also want to make sure your zipper pulls are out the way. And I'm stitching over the seam allowance. So this is stitching it down to be flatter. So it's just, so there's no stitching on the back, just on the front, like so. So we're going to repeat that with the other side. So you'd fold it in half and just clip. Now because I've used waterproof canvas, I haven't had to use any of the interfacing for it. And then line up my center mark and add a clip. And then just work your way outwards. Like that. There. And the end. And then I'm going to grab my tasseled piece, which if you sit it still, it doesn't look like it. But then it's just like sneaky. I really, really, really like it. I almost don't want to sell it. But there's only so many pouches a girl needs. Alright. So let's clip down. So we're going back to our joining stitch length, and now we're going to stitch again. So now I'm up to the zipper pull, so it's just in front of me. So I'm going to zip it out of the way and then continue along. Back stitch, swivel, and pull back just this top one. Now this is going to get a little bit tricky. You want to make sure that your fringing doesn't get in the way. You also want to make sure you're folding this under. And the easiest way to do this is open up your zip. So the second side's always the trickiest. So you may in fact want to stitch it the opposite way. So you do the fringing one first. So I'm just pulling this apart so that we're stitching down the seam allowance. And I'm stitching 1/8 of an inch from the seam we just created. And then back stitch. Now you could in fact do this the opposite way. If you didn't want the stitching on the outside, you could do it like clothes where you stitch it to the lining. That's your choice. Okay, so now I've got this. So we want to join the bottom. So again, if you want to add some clips, I'm going to stitch the bottom and I'm going to make sure all of that's out of my way. So we're going back to joining stitch length and keeping in mind that I am going to run out of bobbin thread very soon. So I want to keep an eye on that. Stitch across there. Trim off the tails. And then we can do the side. So the first thing I want to do is line up that seam where the fabric on the outside meets the lining. So you want that to match up. Like that. I'm going to put 2 clips there, and then I'm going to flip over and do the same to this side, because this is the part that someone will notice if this is lined up or not. And so then I'm going to stitch the bottom shut because I'm turning it through the pocket. If you're not turning it through the pocket, leave the bottom open. Okay, and there goes my bobbin. But that's okay because I have another one. Maybe the middle of the night, but I have thought this through. Pull it through. I'm just going to go back over a couple of the stitches. Like that. And then we're just going to stitch the side. So we're going to get to the join there, needle down, and pivot outwards. Now I can see a flaw in my sewing. So I'm going to actually unstitch the bottom in a second. So when I have joined the back pieces with the zipper pocket, I forgot to like even them out. So obviously whatever seam allowance I did for the pocket is incorrect, but that doesn't mean that my project is over. It just means that I have to undo the bottom. So I'm going to unstitch, I'm going to clip every 3rd to 4th stitch because I refuse to unpick. I have much more control over doing it this way. Like so. And then, if you flip it over and pull out that thread, it just unpicks it for you. Ta-da! And then you just got to do the back stitching parts. You tend to have to clip those individually. So you can just open it out and clip. And same with the other side. Cool. So, let's not worry about the bottom for a second. I'll come back to that. Needle down, pivot out, making sure our fringing is out of the way, like so. So now all I have to do is even up the bigger side with the smaller side. Chop off there, there, and there. Look at that, now it matches. See, you can fix anything. Probably should have checked that at the start, but life goes on. So now I can stitch this back up. And now we're going to box out the corners. So, I always like to start with the lining ones because it doesn't distort the bag as much. So they're easier to do. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the 2 sides apart and roll it in my fingers until this seam and this seam meet in the middle, like that. I'm going to push each of the seam allowances in opposite directions, and that's going to make it super duper flat. And then we're just going to stitch across, making sure we back stitch, because if this comes undone in a bag, this is much harder to fix. So then we're going to do the same to the other side. So with this, you want to make sure that this one is going the same way so that it doesn't twist in the base. Like so, and then trim your tails. And then we're going to come and do the bottom. So, because this one's thicker, I tend to put my finger in it and then squish it together. I just find that that works a bit better. Hold it down flat, under she goes, and then across. And then the same with the other one. So I'm going to stick my finger into the hole, and then I'm going to push this that way because that's the way it has to sit for the base to sit nicely. And then with some maneuvering, because that's not quite lined up. There we go. Now it is. Now I'm just going to stitch over that. And back stitch. And trim your tails. So now all we have to do is go through the zipper pocket. And I'm going to pull out the lining first, because it's going to be the easy side, like that. And then, if I just keep shoving with my thumbs everything else through. Oh, look at that. Alright, so I'm going to get it to there and I'm going to stop and get my turning stick. So this is a flute cleaner for some people that have never watched my videos before. It's a wooden flute cleaner. And it is the best pokey turny stick that I have ever come across. I like it better than chopsticks because I tend to... This will never poke through a seam. No matter how much force I put on it, it's still fine. And I run it along all the seams to push them all the way out. You just poke everything out and it just works. Still got this side to go. That's going to go inside the bag. Shove that in. You also want to make sure that you've poked out the vinyl corners. Now this is quite easy with this particular fabric because like I said, this is a very light vinyl. And then I'm just going to pull out the zipper pocket and tuck under those raw edges. So the way I do that is I go to the first knuckle basically so that I can bend it and pull. And then if that's too much for whatever reason, you can always just roll it in your fingers back so that you're tucking under less. And I'm going to do it with fringe up so that I can make sure I'm not going to stitch it. I'm going to do a couple of stitches. No, what's going on there? I'm not going to do a couple of stitches apparently. This is not normal. I do have to fix this, but I feel like a Dremel in the middle of the night is not ideal. So I'll do it in the morning. I also have to go through the shed. It's cold outside. So there's a thread stuck. So if you rotate it, it tends to come out. But I always take my bobbin out first in case it's also stuck on that. Make sure the needle's up. Put your bobbin in. One full rotation will pull out the bobbin thread. And then pull that off. So that's just the remnant of my first try. Tuck it under. And you can even, because this is the waterproof vinyl, you can finger press it quite easily. Loves a good crease. So instead of back stitching, because clearly my machine's got issues, I'm going to do 3 stitches and then I'm going to lift up and go back through the first hole. And that's a way around that. I'm just going to line this up, stitch along the edge, and then back stitch. Trim those tails, and then tuck that back into the pocket. And I'm using my fingers, or fingernails specifically, to push it all the way down. And there you go. One fringed zipper pocket. And see how it echoes the top? I don't know. I really like that. That's a cute little pattern. I'm going to do the toy squish on the corners so that it stands up by itself. There you go, guys. Alright, I'm going back to bed.